She had just graduated but couldn't find a job. Her sick mother needed care, and the weight of responsibility pressed heavy on her young shoulders. Yet even in her own struggle, she offered kindness to a stranger, someone who couldn't even afford transport fare. What she didn't know was this one simple act would become the turning point of her life. Who was this stranger? Why did their paths cross at that exact moment? Sit back as we unfold a powerful and unexpected story, one that proves how life can change when you least expect it. Mark Eric was a wealthy young man from one of the most influential families in Lagos. His family didn't just have money, they had power. They owned Eric's Real Estate Limited, a name that echoed through the city, with lands, buildings, and luxurious estates. To the world, Mark had everything: status, security, and a name people envied. But behind the suits and smiles, Mark carried a quiet burden. His family's future rested on him. Everyone watched, everyone expected. But deep inside, Mark craved something different. Not wealth, not praise. He longed for something real, something he could call his own. But no one knew that part of him. To them, he was simply the next Eric in line. One Saturday morning, Mr. Paul Eric, the well-known owner of Eric's Real Estate, sat in his large sitting room. He was a tall man with grey hair and a strong voice. He had built his company from nothing and was now one of the most respected real estate men in the country. But today, he looked worried. He called out to his wife, "Eunice, where's Mark? We need to talk to him today. We cannot wait much longer." Mrs. Eunice Eric, a gentle and kind woman, walked into the sitting room. She was the one who always kept peace in the house. She looked at her husband and sighed quietly. "He's in his room resting. Should I go and call him now?" "Yes, please," Mr. Paul said. "We must speak to him today. The future of Eric's real estate depends on him." Mrs. Eunice walked up the staircase and knocked on the heavy wooden door. "Mark, are you there? Your father wants to see you. Please come down to the sitting room." Mark opened the door slowly. His face was calm, but his heart was heavy. "Yes, Mom, I'm coming." He walked down the staircase step by step until he reached the sitting room. Mr. Paul Eric was sitting in his big couch. His face was serious but kind. Mark greeted him quietly. "Good morning, Dad." Mr. Paul nodded. "Good morning, my son. Please sit down. We need to talk." Mark sat on the small seat in front of his parents. His hands were together in his lap. His mind was busy. "Dad, Mom, what's going on?" Mrs. Eunice exchanged a nervous look with her husband. Mr. Paul cleared his throat and began, "Mark, your mother and I are getting older. We think it is time for you to step in as the new CEO of our company, Eric's Real Estate Limited." Mark's heart started to beat faster. "The new CEO? Me?" "Yes, you, my son." Mr. Paul nodded with a proud smile. "It's your birthright, Mark. This is your future. This is the future of our family." Mark pressed his hands together quietly. "Dad, Mum, I'm not sure I want this. I appreciate everything you've done, but I want to follow my own path. I want to make my own choices." Mr. Paul's face grew hard. His voice was firm. "What do you mean?" Mr. Paul said quietly but boldly. "Your path? Your choices? Did you raise yourself? Did you make this company what it is today? We made all these choices for you. We gave you everything you have, and now you want to walk away? Is that how you thank us? Is that how you appreciate our struggles and sacrifices?" Mark nodded slowly. "I will think about it, but I want you to know I'm not sure this is what I want for myself." The room fell silent. Mr. Paul tightened his grip on the arm of his seat. His wife pressed her hands together in her lap, and in that moment, a big decision was underway, a decision that would soon change everything in their lives. Mark was not happy with their plans. His heart was heavy. All he could think about was his dream. He wanted to make music, not sell houses. This made him sad. This made him worried. He stayed in his room, sitting quietly on his bed. His hands were together, and his mind was busy. Should I follow their plans or follow my own path? Mark whispered to himself. I want to make songs. I want to make people happy with my voice, not by selling houses. He turned off the light in his room. The clock was ticking as the nights passed. His worries grew bigger. What if his dad stayed angry? What if his mum cried more? What if he let them down? Mark pressed his face into his pillow. I'm sorry, but I think I need to be true to myself, he said quietly. I need to follow my heart. A few days later, Mr. Paul called Mark back into the sitting room. His voice was heavy and firm. Mark, we need to talk. This cannot wait any longer. Mark walked slowly down the staircase. His knees felt weak, but he kept going. His dad was sitting in his big seat. His mom, Mrs. Eunice, was sitting close by, her hands pressed together. She was worried for her son, worried for their family. Mr. Paul raised his voice. Mark, we made everything for you. We made sure you have a big future. We made sure you would lead Eric's real estate. Why are you turning your back on us? Why? Mark pressed his hands together. Dad, Mom, I'm sorry. I appreciate everything you've done, but I want something different. I want to follow my own path. I want to make music. I want to be happy in my own way. Mr. Paul's face grew red with shock. Music? Are you mad? Do you know what you're turning down? Do you know you're dropping a multi-million-dollar company because of what? Some songs? Mr. Paul's voice became aggressive. Mark, listen to me. If you do this, I will freeze your bank account. I will cut you off. You will not be able to use a single car in this compound. Do you hear me? You will lose everything. So think carefully. This is your last chance. Mrs. Eunice started crying quietly. Mark, please listen to your father. Mark stood up slowly. His knees were shaking, but he was strong in his decision. I'm not going to be your CEO. I'm going to follow my heart. Mr. Paul fell silent. His grip tightened on the arm of his seat. The room was heavy with silence. Mrs. Eunice cried quietly in her hands. Mark turned and walked toward the door without looking back. He left their big mansion and went out into the busy city. He decided to board a public transport bus, a big yellow bus that would take him far away from all the pressure. Across town, Margaret was struggling. She was a poor lady who had just finished her degree in business administration, but without a job. Margaret stood by her small window and looked outside. The clouds were heavy in the sky. The rain was about to fall. Inside her small room, there was not much food. There was no money for bills. Her landlord was already asking when she would pay the rent. Her father had passed 2 years earlier, and now her mother was sick, and there was no money for her treatment. Margaret knelt down by her mother's side. Mama, please hold on. I'm trying. I'm looking for a way to pay for your treatment. Her mother opened her eyes slowly. Don't cry, my child. I'm proud of you. I know you are a strong woman. Margaret pressed her hands together quietly. Mama, I won't let you down. I'll do whatever I can. I'll find a way. I'll make sure you get the treatment you need. That night, as the rain fell outside, Margaret cried quietly in the corner of their small room, worried, afraid, and unsure what the future held. The next morning, Margaret woke up very early. She pressed her hands together and whispered a small prayer. Please, let me find a job today. I need this. Mama is sick, and I want to help her. Margaret got up, had a bath, and put on her best dress. She held her small bag close and walked out into the busy streets of the city. All day long, she went from company to company. She dropped her CV. She filled forms. She begged them to give her a chance. As the clouds started to gather in the sky, Margaret felt worried. What if I find no job today? What if I can't pay for Mama's treatment? She kept walking. Her feet were heavy. Her stomach was empty. Just as she was turning onto a busy street, something caught her eye. She saw a notice board in front of a restaurant. The notice read, "Cleaner wanted. Apply in person." Margaret pressed her hands together. "Thank you. I'll do whatever I can. I'm not afraid. I'm not ashamed. I just want to help Mama." She walked into the restaurant and spoke quietly to the manager. "Good afternoon, sir. I saw the notice outside. I'm looking for a job. I'm willing to clean. I will work hard." The manager nodded slowly. "Start tomorrow. We pay at the end of the week." Margaret's face lit up with gratitude as she replied, "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I will not let you down." Margaret walked back home with a heavy but thankful heart. I may be a cleaner, but I'm not a beggar. I'm a strong woman, and I'll do whatever it takes to care for Mama in the meantime, until I get a better opportunity. In a lounge at a busy part of the city, Mark sat having a drink, his mind heavy. His parents had frozen his bank account. They had also locked up all the cars in the compound. Mark could not use them anymore, so he started going out by himself to clear his mind and think about his future. Sometimes he would leave in the morning and come back very late at night. His heart was full of worries. His parents didn't appreciate his love for music. They didn't want him to follow his passion. They wanted him to be a big boss, the new CEO of Eric's real estate. But Mark wanted something different. He wanted to follow his own path, his own passion, his own happiness. That evening, after a tiring day of thinking, Mark stepped out from the lounge. He walked down the busy road toward the bus stop. The clouds were turning dark, and the sunset was fading. Vehicles rushed to and fro. The people walked fast, and the city was full of noise. Mark kept his hands in his pocket, thinking about what to do with his future. His mind was so busy, he didn't even see someone bump into him. The man said quietly, "Sorry, brother. I'm so sorry." Mark nodded and kept walking, not even noticing that the man had slipped his wallet from his pocket. His wallet was gone, but he didn't know yet. That very same evening, Margaret finished her shift after a tiring day of work. She stepped out of the restaurant with her small handbag on her shoulder, then walked down the busy road toward the bus stop. She was thinking about her own worries, about her sick mother, about money, about their future, not realizing that something big was about to happen. The paths of two people were slowly crossing, and their stories were about to connect in a way that nobody saw coming. Mark arrived at the bus stop. He put his hand into his back pocket to pay for his bus fare, but his wallet was gone. His eyes opened wide in shock. His heart started to beat faster. He turned his other pockets inside out. "Where's my wallet? Where's my wallet?" he said quietly to himself. Mark thought, "Maybe I left it at the lounge." So he rushed back to the lounge. He went up to the waiters. "Did you see a wallet? Did someone find a wallet?" he asked. The waiters shook their heads. "No, we didn't see anything." Mark turned and walked back toward the bus stop. His worries grew. "What will I do now? How will I pay for the bus?" he said quietly. When he got back to the bus stop, another bus was already loading passengers. Mark went up to the driver. Please, I lost my wallet. I have no money, but I need to get home. Please, can I ride without pay? The driver shook his head. No pay first. My bus is not for charity. The driver turned away, ignoring Mark's pleas. Inside the bus, Margaret was sitting by the window seat. She was looking outside quietly, her mind heavy with worries about her sick mother, about the bills, about her future. Then, something caught her attention. A young man outside begging for a ride. She heard him say that he had lost his wallet. Her heart was filled with kindness. She didn't have much money, but something in her told her, help him. Do something kind today. Margaret stood up and walked toward the bus driver. Wait, please. I'll pay for him, she said quietly. The driver turned and looked at her. Are you sure you want to pay for a stranger? He asked. Yes, I'm sure. Please let him in. Margaret opened her small purse and took out some money, just enough to pay for his fare. The driver nodded reluctantly. All right, he can come in. Mark's eyes grew big with surprise. Thank you so much. I appreciate this. You're kind, really kind. He walked into the bus and found a seat near Margaret. The two didn't say much, but something was starting. A new path was opening up, a path that neither of them saw coming. Mark turned to Margaret. His heart was full of happiness. Thank you. May God bless you. I appreciate you, he said quietly. Margaret nodded. It's okay. I'm happy I could help. Then Mark said to Margaret, My name is Mark. Margaret whispered back, My name is Margaret. Mark paused for a moment. His heart was beating faster. Can I have your phone number? He asked quietly. Margaret fell silent. She held her small bag close. She was worried about trusting someone, worried about what might happen. Then, after thinking for a moment, she slowly nodded. Yes, I'll give you my number. Mark carefully copied her phone number. His hands were a little shaky, but he was smiling. He noticed something about Margaret, her restaurant uniform. It was a simple uniform, not rich or fancy. It made him think, she's kind even when she's struggling, even when life is not easy for her. This kindness touched him deep in his heart. Mark kept looking forward as the bus kept moving, not yet realizing that this moment was the start of something new, something that would change both their lives. That night, when Mark got home, he lay down in his bed. He kept thinking about that kind woman, Margaret, the woman who paid for his bus ride even when she didn't have much. Mark whispered quietly to himself, Who is she? Why is she so kind, even when life is not kind to her? His mind was heavy with questions. He wanted to know more. Mark decided he was going to find out about Margaret. The next morning, he called his friend David, who was an investigation officer. David, I need your help. Please check up on someone for me. Her name is Margaret. I will send her phone number to you. I want to know who she is. I want to be sure that I can trust her. David paused for a moment. All right, Mark. I'll see what I can find. The phone fell silent, and Mark pressed it close to his ear. His heart was beating faster. Please, let there be something good about her. A few days later, David called back. Mark, I found something. Mark held his phone tighter. What did you find, David? Tell me, please, David said, quietly. Margaret is a hard-working lady with a kind heart. She finished university with a degree in business administration, but it's been hard for her to find a good job. Now, she's a restaurant cleaner. She's struggling, but still kind to everyone. Mark fell silent. His heart was heavy with understanding and care for someone he barely knew. Thank you, David. I appreciate this. We'll meet later in the evening. Mark turned off his phone, closed his eyes, and whispered, Margaret, I'm going to do something. I'm going to make things right. And that was the moment that everything started to change. One morning, Mark decided to visit the restaurant where Margaret worked. He wanted to see her again. He wanted to know her better, but without letting her know he was from a rich family. He wanted to start a genuine friendship with her, a friendship devoid of status. When Mark stepped into the small restaurant, the smell of food filled the air. Margaret was busy cleaning a table close to the window. She looked up when she heard the door open. She saw Mark and paused for a moment. She felt like she had seen that face before, but for that moment, she couldn't remember where. Mark walked in quietly and chose a seat in the corner. He didn't want to disturb her while she was on duty. He ordered some food and ate slowly. His eyes kept going to her as she moved from table to table. Margaret kept working, but something in her heart kept telling her that the man sitting there looked familiar. She tried to remember, but the thought wouldn't come. Mark finished his meal, paid, and left the restaurant quietly without saying anything to her. He wanted to wait for the right time to speak to her. Later that evening, Margaret finished her shift. She cleaned her hands, picked up her small handbag, and stepped out of the restaurant. The street was busy, and she started walking toward the bus stop. Suddenly, she heard someone call, Margaret. She turned around and saw the same young man standing under a streetlight. His face was kind, and he was smiling at her. Margaret stared at him for a few seconds, then said, with a soft laugh, I remember now. You're the man from the bus last time, right? Mark nodded and smiled. Yes, I've come to pay your bus fare today, like you paid mine last time. They both laughed together. The evening air felt soft around them as they walked toward the bus stop side by side. They began to talk. A small friendship had started, and little did they know, their lives were about to change forever. Mark started visiting Margaret's restaurant in the evenings, during her closing hours. Each time, he would sit quietly at a corner table, drinking a small cup of juice or tea, just to wait for her. Margaret noticed him and started smiling every time he came around. They began talking and laughing together after work. At first, it was just small talk about the food, the people, the busy city. But slowly, their hearts started opening up to each other. Sometimes, after closing, the two would walk side by side toward the bus stop, laughing and sharing stories about their lives. It felt as if something new was growing, something much bigger than just friendship. One evening, Mrs. Ununis, Mark's mother, sat alone in the living room, frowning and thinking. She worried about her son. Later that night, when Mark came home late, tired and quiet, Mrs. Ununis quietly knocked on his door. Mark, may I come in? She asked softly. Mark opened the door and let her in. He closed it behind her. Mrs. Ununis sat on the edge of his bed and looked at him kindly. My son, I am worried. Mark sat down next to her, his head low. Mum, I'm okay. I promise. Mrs. Ununis took his hand. Mark, I know your father and I froze your account and the cars. We did it because we love you. We only want what is best for you. We built this company with our blood and sweat so you can have a strong future. Mark looked into his mother's gentle eyes. Mom, I know, but I feel lost. I have dreams too. Mrs. Ununis pressed his hand. I understand that, my son. I will talk to your father. I will ask him to open your account again and let you use the cars. We will give you time to think. You're our son, our very smart boy. I know you will make the right decision. Mark nodded, his heart lightening a little. Thank you, Mom. Thank you. Mrs. Ununis stood and said, "Rest now, my son. Tomorrow is a new day." And in that quiet room, mother and son found a moment of peace. The next evening, Mark and Margaret walked together down the busy street. The air was warm, and the city was full of life. They decided to stop at a small wine bar to share a glass and talk. Mark held up his glass. "To us, to our friendship." Margaret smiled and clicked her glass against his. "To us." They started to chat and laugh. They were happy just being together. Mark then said, "Excuse me, I need to use the restroom." He stood up and walked toward the restroom, leaving his phone on the table. While he was gone, the phone screen suddenly turned on. A message popped up. The message was from a person saved as Mom. The message said, "Son, I've spoken with your dad. He's decided to reactivate your account and let you use the cars starting tomorrow morning." Margaret saw the message and her heart started to beat faster. She whispered quietly to herself, "Mark, is he rich? Was he hiding something from me?" Margaret felt a little sad and a little angry. Is our friendship real, or is it a game? When Mark came back and sat down, he noticed that something was different. "Margaret, is everything all right? Did I do something?" he asked quietly. Margaret forced a small smile and said, "I'm fine. Everything's fine." But deep down, there were many questions in her heart, questions that made their growing friendship unsure. That night, Margaret came back home. She looked tired and sad. She sat down on the small chair in their little sitting room. She placed her handbag on the table and kept quiet. Her mother, Janet, who was now getting better because of the medicine Margaret had been buying, watched her closely. Janet was folding some clothes, but she stopped. "Margaret, my dear," Janet said softly, "what is wrong? You don't look happy. Did something happen?" Margaret looked at her mother. She felt like crying, but she tried to hold back the tears. "Mama," Margaret began, "I don't know what to think. Mark, the young man I told you about, I found out something tonight." Janet came and sat close to her. "What did you find out, my child?" Margaret sighed. "I saw a message on his phone. His mother sent him a message. She said his father has allowed him to use their cars again, and that his account will be open again tomorrow. Mama, it means he is from a rich family. He never told me. I feel like he lied to me." Janet touched her hand gently. "Margaret, listen to me. Sometimes people keep their stories to protect their hearts. Maybe he was scared. Maybe he wanted you to like him for who he is, not for his money." Margaret looked at her mother, confused. "But Mama, what if he was just playing with my feelings?" Janet smiled kindly. "Don't rush to judge him, my dear. Wait and see what happens. The truth always comes out in the end. Be patient. You have a good heart, and good hearts always find the right answers." Margaret nodded slowly, though her heart was still heavy. She knew her mother's words made sense, but deep inside, she still felt unsure. It was a bright Saturday morning. The sun was out, and the weather felt calm. Mark had been thinking all night. He knew he had to be honest with Margaret. He didn't want to keep hiding who he was, so he picked up his phone and sent her a message. "Hi, Margaret. Please, can you join me for lunch today? I want to see you and talk to you about something important." After some minutes, Margaret replied, "Okay. Where should I meet you?" They agreed on a small, quiet restaurant not far from Margaret's area. By noon, Margaret arrived. She wore a simple dress and carried her usual small bag. When she walked in, Mark was already sitting by the window, waiting. "Hi," Margaret said as she sat down. "Hi," Mark smiled. "Thanks for coming." They both ordered food. At first, they just talked about simple things, but after a while, Mark went quiet. He took a deep breath. "Margaret," he said, "there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you before." Margaret looked at him, her heart beating a little faster. "Okay, I'm listening." "I'm not just any young man," Mark began. "I'm the only son of Mr. Paul Eric, the real estate tycoon." Margaret froze. Her eyes opened wide. "What?" she asked slowly. "Yes," Mark nodded. "That's my father. I know you've heard of him." "Everyone knows him," Margaret said quietly. "Paul Eric is one of the richest men in the country." "Wait, you're his son? But how? You've been entering public buses. You don't even dress like a rich person." Mark smiled a little, but his eyes were sad. "I did all that because I wanted to live like a normal person. I wanted to be able to mingle with everyone in a simple way, without them looking at me differently." Margaret was silent. She didn't know what to say. Mark continued, "My parents want me to take over my father's company. They've spent years building it. They think I should continue the family business. But my dream is different. I love music. I want to be a music producer. That's what makes me happy." Margaret looked at him closely. "So that's why your parents froze your account and stopped you from using their cars?" "Yes," Mark replied. "They were hoping it would change my mind. But I needed time to think. That's why I started going out, walking, entering public transport, trying to clear my head. And that's how I met you." Margaret placed her hand slowly on the table. "You should have told me." Mark looked at her, surprised. "Wait, how did you know my account was frozen?" Margaret looked down for a moment, then said, "That day at the wine bar, your phone was on the table. A message popped up. It was from your mum. I saw it by mistake." Mark paused. "Oh, I didn't know. So that's why you looked upset that evening." Margaret nodded slowly. "Yes, I was confused and a little hurt. I didn't know what to think." "I'm sorry," Mark said softly. "I was afraid. I didn't want to lose your friendship. You're one of the few people who treated me kindly when I had nothing to show." There was a long pause. Then Margaret said, "I'm still trying to take all this in. But thank you for telling me the truth." They both sat quietly for a while, sipping their drinks. The air around them felt calm, but their hearts were still full. Then Margaret leaned forward and looked at Mark. Her voice was soft, but her eyes were serious. "Mark," she said, "can I say something?" "Of course," Mark replied. "It's about your passion for music and your family business," Margaret said. "I know you love music so much. I've seen the way your face lights up when you spoke about it." Mark smiled a little. "Yes, it means everything to me." "I understand," Margaret said. "But I've been thinking, what if you didn't have to choose one and throw the other away?" Mark looked at her, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you can do both," Margaret said. "Why not accept your father's offer and become the CEO of the company? You'll be helping to keep your family's name strong. That company is your father's sweat. You can't let it fall." Mark leaned back, listening carefully. Margaret continued, "Then, while running the company, you can also start a music record label. Hire people who know the business well. Build a strong team. You don't have to do everything alone. You can find young, talented singers and help them grow. Your name will still be in the music world, not just as a singer, but as someone who made way for others." Mark's eyes slowly widened as he took in her words. "You're saying I should try to do both?" he asked. Margaret nodded. "Yes, don't bury your gift, but also don't throw away your father's legacy." Mark was silent for a moment, then he smiled. "That's actually a smart idea," he said. Margaret smiled back. I know you can do it. You just need to believe in yourself. Mark looked at her for a long time. You are something else, Margaret, he said. I didn't just meet a friend. I met someone who sees the best in me. They both sat there smiling as something deeper began to grow between them, a bond built on truth, trust, and a shared dream. That evening, Mark walked into the house with a big smile on his face. His steps were light. He even hummed a song as he dropped his keys on the table by the door. His parents, Mr. Paul and Mrs. Eunice, were sitting in the living room, reading and chatting quietly. As soon as they saw him, they looked at each other in surprise. Mrs. Eunice whispered, "Look at him. He's smiling like someone who just won a lottery." Mr. Paul nodded slowly. Something must have happened. He hasn't looked this happy in weeks. "Good evening, Dad." "Good evening, Mum," Mark said loudly, almost too cheerful. They watched him walk past them with so much joy. He climbed the stairs quickly and went into his room. Mrs. Eunice blinked. "Did you see that?" "I saw it," Mr. Paul replied. "I am surprised." After a while, Mark came back downstairs, clean and fresh. He walked into the living room and sat with them. He cleared his throat. "Dad, Mom," he said, looking at both of them with a calm face. "I've decided." "Decided what?" Mr. Paul asked, leaning forward. Mark smiled. "I want to accept the CEO position. I'm ready to lead the company." There was a long silence. Mr. Paul blinked fast. "Son, what did you say?" Mrs. Eunice looked worried. "Mark, are you okay?" She stood up, walked to him, and placed the back of her hand on his neck. "Mom," Mark laughed. "Please stop being dramatic. I just needed to be sure." She said, "You haven't said anything like this in months." "I'm serious," Mark said, smiling again. "I've thought about it. I've made my decision." Mr. Paul still looked surprised. "What changed your mind?" Mark looked down, then looked back up. "A friend helped me see things clearly," he said. Mrs. Eunice raised her brow. "A friend?" Mr. Paul nodded. "Please bring that friend. We want to meet him." Mark laughed. "Not him, her." Mrs. Eunice gasped softly. "So it's a girl?" "She must be a good girl," Mr. Paul said, "for you to listen to her." Mark smiled. "She is. She's kind, wise, and real. I'll bring her to meet you both soon." They all sat there quietly for a moment. Then Mr. Paul smiled. Mrs. Eunice smiled too. And for the first time in a long while, peace returned to the house again. A few days later, Mark went to pick up Margaret from her workplace during closing hours. When Margaret stepped into the car, Mark turned to her with a soft smile. "Margaret, I told my parents everything, that you were the one who made me see clearly. You made me understand why I must not let my father's company fall. You made me see that I can do both music and business." Margaret looked at him. "And what did they say?" Mark laughed. "They were very happy, especially my mum. And guess what?" "What?" "They said they want to meet you." Margaret quickly looked away. "Meet me?" "Yes," Mark said. "They insisted. They said, 'Any friend that could help change my mind like that must be someone special.'" Margaret paused. "I don't know, Mark." Mark gently held her hand. "They will. Trust me. Please do me this one favor. Come with me. Let them meet the girl who helped their son find his way." After a long pause, Margaret smiled slowly. "Okay, I'll come." On Saturday afternoon, Margaret wore her best gown. It was clean and simple. She looked in the mirror, took a deep breath, and went out to meet Mark. Then she followed him to his house. Mr. Paul and Mrs. Eunice were already waiting in the living room when Margaret entered. They stood up with wide smiles. "You're welcome, my dear," Mr. Paul said warmly. Thank you, sir, Margaret replied, bowing slightly. Mrs. Uneunice walked up to her and gave her a soft hug. We're so happy to meet you, Margaret. They all sat down. After a little chat, Mr. Paul asked, Tell us about your parents, dear. Margaret spoke gently. My father passed away some years ago. My mother, Janet, is alive. She just started working again recently. Oh, sorry about your father, Mrs. Uneunice said, touching her hand. Thank you, Ma. Soon, the housekeeper came in and served lunch. It was a special meal: pounded yam with vegetable soup, jollof rice, chicken, fried plantain, and fresh juice. Everyone ate and laughed together like one big family. After the meal, Mr. Paul cleared his throat. Margaret, he began, I learned that you graduated with very good grades in business administration. Margaret nodded. Yes, sir. Mr. Paul smiled. I and my wife have talked about this, and we have decided you will work in our company. Margaret's eyes opened wide. You will work with our son as the chief operating officer, Mr. Paul said. We believe you have the heart, the mind, and the wisdom for it. Margaret slowly got up, tears filling her eyes. She went on her knees. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ma. I don't know what to say. Mrs. Uneunice stood up and helped her back to her feet. My dear, it is well deserved. And Mr. Paul added, The job comes with a fully furnished house and an official car. Margaret placed her hand on her chest, crying softly. Thank you so much. God bless you, sir. God bless you, Ma. Mark smiled and stood beside her. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom. As everyone settled down again, Mrs. Uneunice leaned close to Mark's ear and whispered, This girl, she's a good girl. I would love to have her as my daughter-in-law. Mark smiled gently, but in his heart, it was a loud joy. The room was filled with peace, laughter, and the quiet sound of a beautiful future beginning. That evening, as Mark drove Margaret home, the car was quiet for a while, but it was a happy kind of quiet. Mark looked at her and smiled. I'd like to meet your mom before I go. Margaret turned to him quickly. You mean it? Yes, he said. I've heard so much about her. I think it's time I greet her properly. Margaret's face lit up with joy. She'll be so happy. When they arrived at her house, Mark parked just a little outside the old building. But before he could even open his door, Margaret flung her door open and jumped out. Mama! Mama! She shouted, her voice full of joy. From inside the house, Janet rushed out, confused. Margaret, what is it? Why are you shouting like that? Margaret ran straight into her arms. She was crying, but this time they were happy tears. Mama, God has done it. God has remembered us. Janet held her tightly, still trying to understand. My daughter, talk to me. What happened? Margaret pulled back, still smiling, still shaking. Mama, I will give you all the details later, but first, I want you to meet someone very special. Mark had stepped out of the car and was standing beside the vehicle, smiling gently. Margaret held her mother's hand and walked her toward him. Mama, this is the friend I told you about. Mark bowed his head with respect. Good evening, Ma. Janet looked at him warmly. My son, how are you? I'm fine, Ma. It's an honor to meet you. Janet smiled, then held his hand. I've heard so much about you. Thank you. Thank you for being a good friend to my daughter. God will bless you. Mark smiled and nodded. Thank you, Ma. They all stood there for a moment, the three of them in the warm evening light. A small breeze passed by, and everything felt peaceful. Janet looked at Margaret again. Now, go inside and tell me what happened. I want to hear every word. Mark laughed. I'll leave you both to talk. I'll check on you again soon, Ma. Janet nodded. Please do. My house is open to you. Margaret saw Mark off to the car. As he got in, she leaned on the window. Thank you for today. Mark touched her hand gently. It's only the beginning. And as he drove off, Margaret stood there, smiling, her heart full of hope, because finally, light had entered their home. 5 months had passed. Everything had changed. Mark was now the CEO of his father's company. He wore suits every day, made big decisions, and led the company with boldness and wisdom. But he wasn't doing it alone. Margaret worked beside him as the chief operating officer. She handled the workers, planned meetings, and made sure things ran smoothly. Together, they had brought great success to the company. Mr. Paul and Mrs. Uneunice were so proud of them. They always spoke about how smart and hard-working both Mark and Margaret were. Margaret's life had also changed completely. She and her mother had moved into the new house that came with her job. It was a beautiful place, quiet and peaceful. For the first time in many years, they didn't have to worry about rent or light bills. Margaret now had her own car, a shiny blue one. She drove it to work with a smile on her face every morning. Mark's family and Margaret's mother had also become very close. But then, one Saturday afternoon, something strange happened. Mark closed early from work. As he packed his things, he said to Margaret, I have to go. My mum just called. She says she needs me at home. Margaret looked up from her desk. Is everything okay? She didn't say much, Mark replied, but she sounded serious. Margaret nodded slowly. All right. Take care. Mark left. But not long after, Margaret's phone rang. It was Mrs. Uneunice. My dear, she said sweetly, please stop by the house this evening when you leave the office. It's important. Margaret blinked. Ma, is everything all right? Yes, Mrs. Uneunice replied. Nothing bad, just something I want to talk to you about. Margaret smiled a little, but as soon as the call ended, her heart started to beat fast. Why did Mark's mom call me too? And what could be so important that both of us have to come on the same day? She thought. All through the evening, she couldn't concentrate. She kept looking at the time. Her hands were cold, and her mind was full of questions. When it was finally time, she dressed simply but neatly. She got into her car and drove to Mark's family house. She stood at the door for a moment, took a deep breath, and rang the doorbell. From inside, she heard a voice say, Come in. She opened the door and stepped in. Her legs froze, her mouth opened slightly. There, standing in the living room, was her mother, Janet. Mr. Paul was there too, with a big smile on his face. Mrs. Uneunice stood beside him, looking so proud and happy. 2 of Mark's close friends were also present, holding phones and recording. And then, right in the middle of the room, Mark was down on one knee, holding a ring. He looked into her eyes and said softly, Margaret, you changed my life. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Will you marry me? The room was quiet for a moment. Then everyone shouted, Say yes! Say yes! Say yes! Tears rushed to Margaret's eyes. She put her hand over her mouth. She was shaking. She tried to speak, but no words came. Only tears. Then she nodded, slowly at first, then faster. Yes, yes, Mark, I will. Everyone clapped and cheered. Mark took the ring and placed it gently on her finger. Margaret fell into his arms, and they hugged each other tightly. Janet cried happy tears. Mrs. Uneunice smiled and wiped her eyes. Mr. Paul laughed and gave a loud clap. Mark's friends were laughing and recording. It was a day no one would ever forget. Two families had now become one, and the love that started from a simple act of kindness had grown into something beautiful. It was the beginning of a new chapter, and this time it was full of joy. This story reminds us of something very important. Never look down on anyone. The person you treat with kindness today might be the one God uses to change your life tomorrow. And sometimes, the blessings we are praying for come to us through people we least expect. Always be humble. Always be kind. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What did you take away from this story? Was there a moment that truly touched your heart? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. And guess what? Another powerful story is just around the corner, and you won't want to miss it. So go ahead, subscribe now, and tap the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when it's released. If this story moved you, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's spread the message together. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay kind, stay hopeful, and never stop believing in what God can do.